Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of B6 and Beyond. Today you've got myself, Cory, and you've got Matt. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Good, thank you. Unfortunately, no Ben tonight. He is unwell, so hopefully he'll be back in time for the Villa Bologna game. So we've got a little bit to talk about, but first, before we get into that, if you are here and you are new, hit that subscribe button down below. We have a like goal of 20 likes per video, so we're trying to hit that. And also, every 500 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway, whether that's match tickets or a Villa shirt of your choice. So, Matt, it's been an interesting couple of days, to say the least.
Yeah, I obviously Monchi getting announced last night or early hours of this morning that he's leaving Villa. It's not been
Yeah,
confirmed by the club yet, but every article and every journalist has reported that it's happened. We obviously spoke on Sunday that his business in his 2 years in charge of Villa hasn't been great in terms of the transfers. The team that started on Sunday, 9 of the 11 were inherited by Steven Gerrard or Dean Smith,
yeah.
which shows that under the nearly 3 years we've had Emery, we've not really brought in any players to improve the squad that much moving forward. We've had the odd loan player here and there, but I don't think it comes too much of a surprise that Monchi's unfortunately been sacked or left, whichever it is. We're unsure yet.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think a lot of Villa fans have said, sort of think it. We spoke about this on the last podcast. It's ironic, really. We were going to do this podcast was meant to be about recruitment, and then obviously that's came out just beforehand, which I guess it's fitting, really. But I think it's typical Villa fans in a sense that there's been a big overreaction to it. I think a lot of fans are worried as to where this might be. If I'm being completely honest, I personally think it's a good decision. I think I've seen a lot of people worried about it. I'm quite happy it's happened. As you say, recruitment wise, there's probably a couple of players who you could say succeed. I think Moussa Diaby was a success when he came in. Obviously, he had to leave for PSR reasons. I think John Duran was a success, and I think Pau Torres, to a degree, up until now, has been a success up until the last 18 months. But ultimately, as you say, the recruitment in terms of the money we're spending on certain players hasn't been good enough. And also, a lot of people have said, oh, we've had PSR issues. And it's like, well, that's down to Monchi signings and the wages that we're giving them. I
It's,
think from what I've read... Sorry, go on, Matt.
I was just going to say the wages that I'm sure you're going to touch on it, mate. But like
Yeah,
Maxson, Mallon, Onana, there's £110 million of players across 3 players there, and all of them are on like north of 140 grand a
yeah.
week. They're not cheap, and none of them get into our strongest starting 11. Which
No, exactly. That's the big concern. I think from what I've read, I'm not sure how true it is, but from what I've read, apparently there was very conflicting views in terms of Monchi wanted players to come in that we could make a quick profit on, so the younger players, and Emery wanted players who were ready for the there and now, which makes me wonder. I think Ben's questioned a couple of times whether Marlon was an Emery signing, and with that sort of information, it makes me wonder maybe if Marlon was an Emery signing, but then it doesn't make sense to why he's not playing. Whereas the likes of Matson and Onana coming in, you do wonder whether it was a case of if we can have Onana playing 2-3 seasons at a good level for us, can we ship him for £100 million? That sort of thing. Which, listen, I understand people talk a lot about Brighton's business, Bournemouth's business, teams like that, and how well they do, but ultimately they don't finish any higher than 10th. They do struggle. That's the formality of it. Brighton, fair enough, they've got into Europe. I think it was last year they were in Europe, but missed out this year. That's the first time when they've done their recruiting that's worked. For me, I agree with Emery. I think we need players for the here and now. Where we are as a club, we need to be building on that, getting Champions League every year. I know it's a tough task, but you need to get players that are going to come straight into the team and do that.
No, absolutely, mate. And going back to like the game that Gerrard got sacked, Fulham away, which was end of October 3 years ago. That
Yeah,
squad to our squad that started against Sunderland isn't drastically different. Obviously,
not at
Emery's
all.
got the Champions League in Europe the last 3 years, and we've had some loan players come in like Rashford and Asensio that we knew were going to be leaving, and maybe if we'd got Champions League on the last day of last season, perhaps they would have stayed. Obviously, it changed our finances and kind of what we could do across summer in the transfer window, but we actually haven't really done that much in terms of like what Emery wants, the players in the here and now, and we have definitely focused on younger players who might perform strongly that we can maybe then sell on, like Duran, maybe like Unana, like Matson, but none of them are having the impact. The only one really is probably Pau Torres, who was a staple within the first team up
Yeah,
until the back end of last year, and he's been dropped for this year so far. But other than that, none of them, they all look like they've got Monchi's state of mind of, we'll sign these young lads now and sell them for a profit, like you said, as opposed to these guys will push us to Champions League and be in the first team.
yeah, definitely. And I think you sort of look at the likes of who was it we were talking about then? The Rashford and Asensio deals, and that's pretty much the epitome of what Unai Emery wanted. Two players with proven experience. And if you actually look at the table, because I know a lot of teams are saying, oh, well, they spent this much on wages. If you actually look at the Premier League table from the day those two signed to the end of the season, we finished top of the Premier League in terms of points. We were top of the Premier League based on those. So those signings worked. Okay, it was a massive gamble, and obviously in the long run, it's not worked out for us at the moment. But it does prove that if we can get players in that are ready to do that, it's going to help us massively. I think the big question now is obviously nothing, again, as you say, nothing's been announced as of yet as to whether Monchi, well, we know Monchi's left, but nothing's been announced by the club. And then also, I don't know how to pronounce it, like Alabe. I don't know if that's how I would sort of look at it.
The lad from Sociedad, right?
Yeah, from
Yeah.
Sociedad, it looks like he's pretty much put pen to paper. Any thoughts on that, Matt? Do you know much about him?
I know they worked with each other at Emery's first job, and apparently that, again, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he has his values very much in line with Emery in
Yeah,
terms of, apparently he's more of a look at what's happening here and now as opposed to a Monchi who's more maybe look for the future, which obviously both have kind of pros and cons. You know, football's not it's not a one season game. You know, we need to look into,
yeah,
people have 3 year plans, people have 5 year plans, and Monchi seems to be more that kind of that minded, but also right now compared to where we've been in the last 3 years, where we've been pushing on sixth, fifth, and fourth, we need to have something now because at the moment we're realistically a couple games away from being in a relegation battle.
exactly. I think one key thing to mention as well is they actually played together, Unai Emery and
Yes.
Alabe. They made their debut, I think, the same day. Actually, I was reading that earlier today. So, because I think one of the big one of the big conspiracies was that apparently Monchi and Unai Emery were best mates, but apparently that wasn't the case. Apparently they didn't really get on other than from a work point of view. And obviously it seems to be, like you say, Alabe has worked with Emery before and obviously played with Emery as a player, so it seems they've got a strong relationship. I mean, obviously, club statement actually, literally just now, as we're doing this, club statement from Villa. I don't know what it's about. I'll load that up and quickly read through that. Changes to sport in organisational structure. The club would like to confirm that Monchi is stepping down as president of football operations and will continue in an advisory role at V Sports. So he's still going to be working there, and Roberto Olabe will take over as the club's new president. So that is all confirmed by Villa now. Great timing, really, as we're doing this.
Right on.
Yeah, I was just about to go into Roberto Olabe. He's got a very impressive CV, actually, as well, when you look at some of the players that he signed at Sociedad. Alexander Isak, Martin Odegaard, Zubamendi, Kubo, just to name a few. Those, again, were young players, but they were young players who were sort of ready for that moment. And I think that's something that we need to look at. Is Unai Emery's not going to be concerned about signing young players. He's happy to sign young players, but he wants those young players to be ready to go. The likes of Morgan Rogers, when Morgan Rogers came in, he saw something that we didn't really see, and obviously we've not seen much this season, but we didn't see it as fans. But he saw something where he said Morgan Rogers is ready for the Premier League, and obviously that's worked well. I think, listen, only time will tell. I don't think it impacts too much on the pitch. I think whether or not Monchi had a bad relationship with the players, I don't know. Again, it's not going to be, it shouldn't have too much of an impact on the pitch in terms of how we play. Hopefully, there's a better atmosphere around Villa now. Another thing to mention is, was it Unai Emery's decision or was it NSWE? Was it Nassef and Wes Eden's decision? I think a lot of people have sort of come out and speculated that it was Emery's decision, which, if it is, fair play to him for making that decision. Matt, have you got any thoughts on whose decision you think it might be?
I hope it's Emery, mate, because that would, to me, suggest that Emery's still here for the long run. I was genuinely getting quite concerned over the last couple of days with the result against Sunderland and the talks and the rumours going on in the background that if Monchi left, would Emery follow? Because they've come as a bit of a duo and a bit of a double act at some other clubs like Seville. And I was just really hoping, like Emery's given us the best 3 years of my life following the Villa, and
Yeah.
statistically is the best Villa manager we've ever had. To kind of pull the trigger so soon in our first proper wobble under Emery would be, I think, the worst thing we could do. So the fact that maybe we've got rid of Monchi, but it looks like Emery's got his next man in, or someone that he would want, would suggest that Emery's here to stay and the owners are going to continue to back him, which is, for me, the most important thing. I would genuinely rather sell the whole starting 11 and keep Emery than get rid of Emery, because
Yeah.
what he's done for the club, getting us out of a relegation battle, getting us into Champions League, looking at managers out there as well, if we were to get rid of Emery, there's no one that I think would do a better job. Or A, do a better job, B, who's available. So I
Yeah,
think
100%.
that's one. So for me, I think this is positive because it looks like Emery's going to be the one to stay at the club, which is the most important thing for us moving forward, I believe.
I agree. I don't know if you were listening to Stan Collymore on Twitter yesterday. He did a Spaces with a few Villa fans. I don't know if you got a chance to listen into that, but fair enough. At the end, he was asking the Villa fans whether they thought Unai Emery would be at the club this time next year, and I think the resounding answer was yes from a lot. I think it was Ashley Pearce actually who said he didn't think he would be. And to be honest with you, I was very similar to you, Matt. I when the Monchi news broke, part of me thought Unai Emery's going to be out the door today. I genuinely thought we could see a club statement to say Unai Emery's gone today. Thankfully, that's not the case, and as you say, it does seem to be a case of he is here for the long run and he is willing to turn that around, which, brilliant. That's exactly what we want. If there's anyone who can do that, it is him. As you say, I'm the same as you. I sort of grew up with Villa being bottom half of the Premier League and Championship club. I've never seen the heights really, and obviously he's brought us 3 European seasons in a row. Obviously 3 different competitions, which is amazing as well. In a sense, you get to experience all these different places. Champions League nights back at Villa Park, beating Bayern Munich, being robbed out of a win against Juventus, beating PSG, going, I think was it, how many games? 365 days unbeaten at Villa Park, like
Twice
all of that stuff.
Yeah, made it. Our two
Yeah,
most home win records ever are both under Emery, and he beat his
exactly.
record the other week from the first season. Like, it's just ridiculous what he's done with us.
It is, and like you say, I think that the key thing to mention there, which you've mentioned a couple of times, is it is still a Dean Smith and Steven Gerrard team. I'm the difficulty is now is, and we're going to get onto this actually. It feeds quite nicely in how it impacts Villa. What happens in January, I think, is the key part, because we can't have too much of an overhaul, because you can't go into the second half of the season with a brand new team, because that's not going to work. I think a lot of it obviously depends on where we are come January. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it, Matt, about what you think, how this is going to impact us.
Well, depending on with the new director that we're getting in, that we've just announced, we might have a completely different strategy in the transfer window when we get into January.
Yeah.
The other aspect that will just, like, the grey cloud that will be hanging over us regardless will be limited by PSR again. So perhaps we go down the avenue of 2 big loan players that might help us, kind of going down that here and now again, as opposed to a profitable young player that might work out in 3 years.
Yeah.
But I think it will all determine, exactly like you just said, mate, whether we're pushing back for Europe, or if in 2 or 3 months we still find ourselves towards the bottom of the table, will completely determine how our January transfer window looks.
Do you see a potential world where the likes of a Watkins or a Martinez get sold in January? Or do you think that's too big of a risk, especially considering now the new sporting director's in? It's a big risk, I think, personally, for him to say, get rid of them, I've got someone for you. Because ultimately, you're looking at strikers now. If Watkins was to leave, the only one I'd really say potentially would be Samu from Atletico Madrid, and even then he's still young, he's not proven. It's a big risk to take if he's not going to step up. Strand Larsen, he definitely probably wouldn't make that move across to us.
No, I don't think he would.
I also don't think he's anywhere near the quality of Ollie Watkins at the moment, when Ollie Watkins is firing. So
I think if we're going down the route of quick wins. The only one at the top of my head, but I don't think he'd leave Palace, is Mateta.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think Oliver Glasner and Mateta and the rest of the Palace team are building something quite special there at the moment, to be honest. So I don't think anyone would be leaving that Palace squad right now, unless it was like an Eze to Arsenal, but he's an Arsenal fan, was in their academy, it made sense. But Mateta wouldn't jump ship, and other than that, like you've just said, there's so few strikers out there. Or you do a Newcastle and spend 70 plus million pounds on a Bundesliga risk, who, I've made a video about it, and I've made it quite clear I don't think he'll be a valid replacement for Isaac. So I think keeping hold of someone like Watkins would be essential because of the limited options, unless we went and did what we did in January 3 years ago and found John Duran from like the MLS or something. But that was a complete punt, and
yeah,
even though we got more money for him than we ever should have, he only scored about 12 or 13 goals for us. They just 4 or 5 of them happened to be absolute screamers, which got the rest of the footballing world to look at him. But I would keep Watkins and Martinez. Who knows? Obviously, on deadline day, he was pushing a move. I think he'll go within the next 12 months, whether that's in Jan or summer next year. Who knows?
yeah, definitely. I think the key part is transfer fees as well, isn't it? If we're being honest, Martinez now, he was available for, I think it was 40 million at the start of the window in the summer, and then I think it dropped down to 25 million. Is at this point, unless he tries to force a move again, is there any point selling him? What profit margins are we really going to make? Because at this point now, if we're looking at 20 million, we're just making back the money that we spent on him. We're not actually making any sort of profit. Which, to be fair, when you consider 6 years out of him and he's 33 years old, but then also you look at the performance against Everton the other week,
Yeah.
and you still say he has still got that in him. I just say the Watkins deal is a tough one. I personally think we just need someone to back him up. I think we see Marlon go in January, if I'm honest, and I think someone comes in to act as a backup to Ollie Watkins, and we get Marlon off the books.
Like
Guess on.
earlier, just Marlon just stinks of a Monchi signing as opposed to Emery, because we've just seen really none of Marlon. Never really gets to start. There's always someone else who's favoured in his position, whether that's as an out and out number 9 or sitting as a number 10 or playing on either wing where he can play. There's always someone that Emery prefers, and he wasn't cheap and he's not on small wages. It wouldn't surprise me if either we shipped him back off to the Bundesliga or something, or if Saudi came in for him or something like that.
Yeah, and it is a shame with Marlon as well, because I think I've been one of his biggest fans since he joined Villa. I think he was unlucky when he didn't get in the Champions League squad, but every game he played last season, he seemed to score or make something happen. Obviously, he was coming on with sort of tired legs, but again, that's what he's good at. He's rapid. He's got a good strike in him as well. And obviously, me and Ben, we did a few podcasts in pre-season. We both said we wanted to see Marlon start games, and unfortunately, this season he's just not took those opportunities when it's come. And especially now when you look at the likes of Jadon Sancho, who's come in, and I know he's only played 80 minutes of football, Jadon Sancho, but he also didn't have a pre-season. He looks like he's getting up to speed fairly quickly. I mean, that 10-minute cameo against Sunderland was pretty promising, to be fair to him, and like you say, there's no pre-season there. So I think people like Marlon we will look to ship out. Barkley is another one, I think, just to get him off the books, get wages gone in that end. We could potentially see Pau Torres leave and get a centre-back in. I think obviously one of the key areas is right.
I completely forgot we had Ross Barkley until Sunday.
Yeah.
My dad mentioned, he was like, "Where's Barkley?" I was like, I completely forgot we had him. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we shipped him off as well, mate. Sorry, you're going to say one of the key areas then?
I was going to say, yeah, so obviously one of the key areas I think Villa have struggled is the right-back situation. And don't get me wrong, listen, I'm actually one of those on the... I quite favour Matty Cash. I do quite like Matty Cash. I think he gets a lot of stick compared to how bad he actually is. I don't think he's as bad as people make out. I think his problem is whenever he does something good, he also seems to match it with something bad, which is really frustrating for him. But again, as much as I like Matty Cash, I think Matty Cash would be a great backup to have. I just think we need someone to be ahead of him now. Another one, I've spoke about it to Ben a couple of times offline, Andres Garcia. What's happened to him? He again, like you said with Ross Barkley, you almost forget he's at the club. I don't even know what his injury is. It's never been specified. I think he got injured halfway through last season, and we've not seen him since.
Another one I completely forgot we even had him. There was some movements in summer as well when we got rid of Moreno, and I think Moreno just went on a free. I think we just got him off the books.
Yeah, it was a 40% sell-on clause for a 33-year-old, which...
I mean, yeah, that was strange. Obviously getting rid of and looking at those kind of players we brought in, like Dendoncker. What was he ever doing at Villa Park, really? I completely forgot about Garcia. Some of the signings we've made over the last 2.5, 3 years under Monchi have been so questionable, and none of them have really worked that well. Obviously, we've touched on Diaby and Duran, but obviously they've both gone to Saudi, which have helped with PSR. But there's just... you can't be 3 years into a project under a new manager in Emery, and 9 of the 11 that he fields on Sunday are people he's inherited. You look at other big teams, Chelsea, Man U, Spurs, who've all gone through a lot of bit of a up and down period over those last 3 years, and they've had new managers. All of them have had huge overhauls of their team. All of them. Chelsea, will kind of put them to one side because they're an enigma. They've spent $1 billion plus, but Spurs have invested a lot. As of United, I know they're United a huge club as well, but they're not where they have been, and we're still sat with the same back four that started 3 years ago.
That's the thing, and I think one key thing that everyone mentions, it does seem a bit harsh to say, and I don't want to pick out this one player because he's not actually played bad for us this season, but I think you mentioned it on the last podcast, we're going into games in the Premier League where we've just come off the back of a Champions League run starting Emi Buendia. I've got nothing against Emi Buendia, but if he'd have played the last 3 years for us and reached the potential we thought he had, you don't mind, but the fact that he had a season out on loan last year because he wasn't good enough, Leverkusen didn't want him because he wasn't good enough, and he's come back. Fair enough, he had a good pre-season. There's no denying that he was showing character. And to be fair, this season, he's probably one of the only ones who's fighting. But in terms of quality, that's where you have to... Someone like John McGinn, for example. John McGinn, me and Ben talk about McGinn a lot. I don't think McGinn should be in the starting 11. I think he's been a great servant for us. I think he's a key part to the team that we have, and he's definitely a key character. I can see him coming off the bench. I just don't see that with Buendia. I don't see the impact that Buendia has. McGinn's one of them where he hasn't got the talent, but he's got the heart. Buendia's got the heart, but he needs to have the talent in his area. He can't go around sort of losing the ball all the time. McGinn's one of them where at least he'll keep the ball. That's what he's good at. So it's difficult, really. Is there any other players that you can think of that sort of show the difference?
Not really, to be honest. Just going back to McGinn, I agree that we probably do need to move on from McGinn soon. We've had him, 7 or 8 years now? Has it been that long? 6, 7 years?
9, I think it is.
It's 9,
no, it's not 9.
We've had him 9? A long time. We bought him in the Championship, didn't we? So
it's Steve Bruce signed him, wasn't it? I think he signed him in January, so 20... That would have been 2017, so 8, 9 years.
8, 9 years. And I love McGinn, and he's such a unique profile. Like his low sense of gravity, the way he wins the ball, the way if he goes into 50-50, you know he's going to win it. And he's got that heart and passion, which was great for the Championship, and it's great when we were in a relegation battle. But now we're trying to play PSG. We were playing PSG 4 or 5 months ago. We need more technical players.
Yeah.
To replace him, and I love him. I would definitely keep him at the club. Definitely to come off the bench. If we're winning and we need to see out a game with 15, 20 minutes to go, he's the kind of personality who will put 100% in for those last 20 minutes and help the team get over the line. But do I want to be starting with McGinn and Buendia in 2025 after the back of a Champions League run? No.
And that's the thing, it comes down to what we spoke about earlier with proven quality. That's what Emery wants. I mean, me and Ben did a podcast at the start of the season, and one signing that was really disappointing to see, Yazan Yashin Oshan, the young Turkish centre back.
Centre back,
Me
yeah.
and Ben were buzzing for him. We were thinking he's going to come in and he can be sort of like back up to Pau Torres, for example, because at the start of the season it looked that way, and he can learn off him and Mings. And again, he's another one now that's gone to Anderlecht with an option to buy, and it's like that poor kid. He did his interview. He said, "Oh, he's been learning English for the last 6 months. He's really excited to be at Aston Villa." And it's like we've just taken an 18-year-old away from his promising career in Turkey, where he was getting into the Turkish national team at 18 years old. Like he was playing week in, week out for one of his boyhood clubs. To now, I mean, I'll have a look now to see if he's even played for Anderlecht. I don't know how he's getting on there. Hopefully, he's doing well, but it's
There's also that striker as well.
He's played one match.
One match. So it's ridiculous, isn't it? And there was that Redmond.
Yeah, Zeppelin Redmond.
Yeah, Redmond's Dutch striker from PSV, I believe we got him from.
Yes, I believe so.
Meant to be quite promising and talented as well. I don't know if he's still at the club. Did we loan him out? I imagine
he's gone to Huddersfield. He actually scored with his first touch for Huddersfield.
Did he? Okay, good. So that's someone that's actually on loan doing something. But again, there's two kids we've just mentioned who are 18 years old who might be bright sparks in 3 or 4 years, which then will probably sell for PSR reasons, or that would probably be the.
This is the thing. I think. At what point and what age do you sort of make that decision? Like Zeppelin Redmond, for example, he's 19 years old. He's come in as a 19-year-old. He's gone to Huddersfield, which, in my opinion, I think Huddersfield's a great club for him to be at in terms of as a club. But if we're looking at him as a potential to sort of backing up Ollie Watkins, when you look at Duran at 20 years old, he didn't go on loan, he didn't do anything like that. He was watching Watkins. Zeppelin Redmond, when he comes back to Villa, will be 20 years old, or next season at least he'll be 20 years old. He's had a season in League One. So to jump up to the Premier League is a massive jump. Don't get me wrong, it could work for him. It could be a physicality thing that helps him. I would have liked to see him go to the Championship if he's going to go on loan. But then, obviously, it leaves that hole behind who replaces Watkins. You look at Kosta Nedeljkovic, who came in, 17 years old. He was playing for Serbia week in, week out. He was playing for Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League, a big prospect. He came in, played a couple of games for Villa. I don't think he looked that great, I'm not going to lie. But he was 18 years old. We loaned him out with the intention of selling him again. These sort of deals are the ones where it's like, we can't just keep relying on these young kids to come good and hope that the money gets there so we can make profit. Because all it takes is an injury or something like that, and then you lose out on that money. You look at someone like Louis Barry, for example. Louis Barry he's meant to have been the next big thing for so long. And I think this year, obviously, I think it ended up being a case of, was it Hull put in a bid but weren't allowed to buy him or something? So that's why he's gone on loan to Sheffield United. But again, Sheffield United are a big club in the Championship. I know they're not doing well at the moment, but we could have tried to twist their arm, see if we can get 9 million from them. They've got the money to do it, but instead we've let him go on loan. I think he's either fallen out of favour or got injured again, and it's ultimately we're not going to make any profit on him. He's 21 years old. He was one we were hoping that would come back and be probably our replacement for Watkins, really, but it's just not worked out that way.
Just going back to what you just said about Louis Barry, mate, and just any player that might be on loan in League One or the Championship, to ask them to come into a Premier League team after and maybe replace someone in the starting 11, the jump up is so ridiculously big that we cannot rely on that. I mean, I loved Cameron Archer, and he scored goals in the Championship when he was on loan at Preston, and then he was at Sheffield United as well. Obviously, they went down, but he always scored goals in the Championship, and then in the Prem, never really done it. And the gap between the Champ to the Prem is so big that we cannot rely on signing kids, loaning them out to the lower league and hoping that that is going to work, because very rarely does it. The amount of Championship strikers that you could rattle off that scored 30 plus goals in that league but couldn't score 6 or 7 in the Prem because the levels. We can't now rely on our transfer strategy as to get a kid, loan him to a Championship club, come into the first team and make an impact, because they just won't be at the level. And we need to invest at players who are Premier League experience, or at least some of the bigger leagues around Europe, because we're just going to be going back in the same kind of cycle of, we've got a 21-year-old who looks quite promising in League One, can't do it in the Prem, sell him, find another kid, hope he can do the same we might find a John Duran every 20 kids we buy, but realistically,
Yeah.
we'll just loan them back to Jaden Philogene, didn't work. Cameron Archer, like I said, Louis Barry, that Lewis Dobbin that we signed from Everton, gone on
Yeah.
loan to Norwich and West Brom and Preston as well, I think. Like, none of them are Ollie Watkins replacements, and eventually we are going to have to invest 50 plus million pounds in a proven striker.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Philly June actually, because that was the one that I was just going about to go on to. That was a panic in itself. We obviously sold him. He did well at Hull. Fair play. He did really well at Hull. That was the sort of level he was playing at. Championship, he was tearing it apart. He then came back as the Moussa Diaby replacement, which again is a ridiculous thing to say to someone. You've just played a year in the Championship. You're now going to replace someone who tore up the Bundesliga, someone who, for a terrible season, had 20-something goal contributions for Villa. And then you're saying to him, right, that's your job now. He's come in at Villa, had 6 months, didn't play well at all, then got shipped off to Ipswich, had 6 months there, didn't play well. Now he's finding his feet. He scored a hat-trick the other week. But I think that's his level at the moment. There's no denying that Jaden Philogene has the potential to be a Premier League footballer one day, but we didn't need to take that risk straight away. What we should have done is just said, listen, yes, we've got the buyback option, but we'll let Ipswich have him. They can buy him back. We'll go and replace Diaby. If in 5-6 years Philogene ends up being the player we thought he is, there is that option for him to come back, because he wanted to come back. That's the reason he came back. And I don't think that would have changed. I think it would have been a case of Emery could have called him up and said, listen, Jane, we're going to give you the chance to express yourself at a different club. And if it ends up working out, we'll always have you in mind, and you can come back when you're 24 years old, 25 years old, playing at a better level. But I think that we'll leave it there, because I think we could ramble on about loads of different youth players. You could go all the way back to the Russian Hepburn Murphy days and Nathan D'Alfonso days if we wanted to. But I think ultimately the way to sum it up is there's changes going on at Villa. Are they exciting? Yes. Are they nerve-wracking? Absolutely. Is Unai Emery going? Doesn't look like it. Monchi has now been confirmed as leaving. Olabe has been confirmed as joining the club. Hopefully come January we'll be in a better position. We've obviously got the game on Thursday and the game on Sunday, both home games, and then the games next week as well. Anything else to add, Matt?
No, mate, let's just hope we can get a result down Villa Park on Thursday against Bologna, kick off the Europa League campaign in good form, and hopefully get a bit of some positive vibes back down Villa Park.
Exactly that. And as always, if you made it this far, drop us a like, drop us a subscribe, and one last thing, up the Villa.